This is the hardware kit, comes with the unit. Has the mount for the rear engine protector, steering wheel, all the bolts you're going to need to put it together. Some more hardware, some bolts, wheel covers, flag, battery cover and battery strap, the manual, where the key's going to be. This is where the key is mounted most of the time. Sometimes it's in the ignition, or it might be strapped underneath the dash. Now that we got everything out of the unit, we're going to take the bolts loose from the frame. Where the unit, the lower control arm is closer to the frame, on both sides, on the front and the rear. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to put in the rear shock. You want to put the top part of the spring, the adjuster to the bottom, put the bolt in. Put the nut on. Bolt in. And take two 12mm wrenches and tighten the bolts. Now we're going to hook up the lower control arm to the spindle. You're going to remove this rubber boot. It does not go there. It goes on the bottom. Then you're going to put it on here, on the lower control arm. You're going to put the washer And the nut on with a 17mm wrench. You're going to tighten it up so the holes line up. And then you're going to put in the keyway, or quarter pin. Make sure you put this keyway in, because the nut will get loose and it'll fall apart if you don't put it on there. Now we're on the left side. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to pull this rubber boot off, put it on the bottom of the spindle. Then we're going to slide it onto the control arm, lower control arm. You're going to put it in the washer, then the nut with a 17mm wrench. And then you're going to tighten it snug until you line up the holes for the quarter pin. Next thing we're going to do is going to put on the right front tire. Make sure the tread is pointing toward the front of the vehicle. Make sure the valve stem is on the outside. You're going to use a 19mm wrench. You're going to put on the washer and the nut and the keyway. I was about to say that.
I'll sit down.
Now we're going to put on the rear tire. Again, make sure that the valve stem is to the outside. The treads are pointing toward the front of the vehicle. The tire will be flat, so air the tire up. Also, you might want to take this cap off. Make sure the valve stem is tight. This one is loose. If it's sticking out like that, it will leak air. So take a little tool and screw it in and then air the tire up. So we're going to put on the bar, the top bar. We're going to need one bolt, 2 washers, and 1 nut for each end. Once you do that, you're going to do the same thing on the other side. Now we're going to put the muffler guard on. That's so the kid doesn't put their arm on the muffler and get burned. So what you want to do is you want to put the bolt in the front, and then you got a bolt that goes right here. Once you tighten those bolts up, there's only 2 bolts. The hole in the back here, no bolt goes here. You're going to install this bolt, and you're going to install this bolt with a nut on the back side. You do not install this one. Now we're going to install the T-bar on the top. Make sure all these caps are on when you put them on. You got 2 holes right here. You want to go to the front one. You want to start all the bolts before you tighten them. You don't want to tighten the bolts until you're done, or you won't get them all lined up. Can't turn them. Now that I got all the bolts in, I want to go around and tighten all the bolts from the bottom, the top, and the front. Now we're going to put the rear crossbar on above the gas tank. See, they line it up where we can. Okay, now we're going to put this bar on the side. There's one on each side. They both go on the same way. Put these on. Now we're going to put the steering wheel on. You got 3 bolt holes, 3 bolts. You got nuts and bolts. Nuts go on the back side. Make sure this bar is facing down. This bar goes down, not up. Once you get these bolts tight, then you're going to pop this cap on. Hook it on the top, pop it on the bottom. When you get ready to start it, make sure you fill it with gas or it's not going to start. Pull the choke. This is the choke. You pull the choke out, turn the key, and push the button and start it. This is a fuel filter. Make sure that this filter is hooked up like this. Because sometimes the factory does not hook these up and it's just laying down here. And when you put gas in it, all the gas will run out all over the engine. So make sure you hook this up. Also, make sure when you put the battery in, you get your clamps tight, your bolts tight. Make sure you put this strap on. If you don't, the battery will fall out and you'll have issues. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to put in the battery. Make sure the positive is on the red side, and this side, the negative side. Don't put them backwards.
Head to toe, that's a dangerous track. I don't know how much of that PC though. Let's start with the oil units on top. It's like...
If the battery is dead and you need to charge it, just pull these rubber caps back. Put the charger on it. You don't need to remove the battery unless the battery is bad. Okay, on this unit, if your chain keeps jumping off or the chain's not lined up properly, you want to take this cover off. If you look inside here and you look at this small sprocket and the lower sprocket, they should be lined up straight. If the lower sprocket is too far to the side, you want to take this silver washer right here out. This is a spacer. Take this nut off, move that spacer to the other side of that little sprocket. And all you do is take this nut off, pull this off, pull the little sprocket off, put the washer back on, and put it back together. Next thing you want to do is you want to check the tightness of the chain. The chain is loose because the factory leaves them loose because they want you to adjust the chain properly. You want to loosen the bottom nut with a 17mm or 19mm wrench. Once you loosen the bottom nut, you'll be able to adjust the chain. Then you screw in the top nut with a 19mm, and it raises the engine up, and you'll see the chain get tighter. Now you see the chain is tight. You don't want the chain real tight. You want to be able to move it a little bit. If you get it too tight, you'll break the chain. So you just want it barely snug. Then you go and you tighten this bottom nut so it doesn't loosen up. And then when you get done putting your air cleaner on and your wing nut on the top, make sure you remember to turn this fuel back on, push it forward, that's on. This one doesn't have a choke here because the choke is up by the steering wheel in the front where you pull the choke. Also make sure you turn the fuel on here or you won't be getting any gas to the carburetor and it won't run. So make sure you turn that down so that the fuel is on and put gas in the engine and you're ready to go.
How to change your carburetor on your Trailmaster TM Mini XRX.
First you're going to take your wing nut off the top. Then you're going to remove the airbox cover. Then you're going to remove this wing nut to get the filter off. Goodbye. Remove the air filter. Remove the top part of the box. And you're going to remove your screws or nuts. You got two on the side and you have one on the top. I'm going to pull the cable back, and this part should come off. Move this vacuum line, be careful, don't break the plastic thing off or you won't be able to put it back on. Then you remove this part of the airbox. Then you get your cable. You're going to pull the cable out of the slot right here. Just like that. And that's the accelerator cable. Then you're going to slide the carburetor out. You'll take the fuel line off right here. Sometimes you may have to take a flathead screwdriver and pry it off. Just kind of pry up on it so it comes off. So make sure the fuel is turned off or the gas will run in the floor. Remove this gasket. Make sure when you put this gasket back on, this little notch right here is on the top, not on the bottom, or it will not work. And you're going to remove this spring right here, and then you're going to pull this off and the carburetor's off. Then to put it back on, say this is your new carburetor, you're just going to slide it back on here. You're going to hook this cable back up right here, a rod, and then you're going to hook the spring back on, back in the hole here. That's the return spring for the governor. And you're going to hook your fuel line back up. Make sure the clamp is back on it, like so. Slide the carburetor back. And you're going to take this gasket, and remember this notch goes to the top, just like that. Then you're going to put this piece back on. Also on the back you have a spout right here for your crank ventilation hose. This is the crank ventilation hose that goes into the valve cover. Make sure you put that back on as you're sliding this on. videotape that hose. This hose here. Make sure you put this hose back on. Then you're gonna put your two nuts back on. Actually, I forgot one step. Gotta put this throttle cable back on, back through this little groove. And if you look, you'll see it's bigger on one side than it is on the other. You want the bigger side on the side where this ball is. And you just hook it inside and pull it through that hole like that. And then just lay this over to the side and then put this on. And make sure you hook up the crank ventilation hose over here. Just like that. Then you put your nuts on. Don't tighten these all the way up yet, just barely snug them, because you have a bolt in the top that you have to put on in this bracket. You have to put this bolt in first, and you may have to move it a little bit to get that bolt in. Then go back and tighten your nuts, and don't get them real tight, just snug them. It's plenty tight enough just to barely snug them up. They don't have to be real tight. And then tighten the top one. And then you want to put this piece back on. The bottom part of the air box goes like that. And then you put the filter on. Then you take your wing nut, make sure this washer's on there, put the wing nut on top of it. Don't drop it in the floor like I do. Snug it down a little bit. Also, another thing you want to do when you're putting this filter back in, make sure this filter doesn't have any oil in it. If this filter is wet, if you open this and that paper filter is wet with oil, it will not run. You need to replace the filter. We're going to put the cover back on, and we're going to put the wing nut back on the top. And then we're going to put this vacuum hose back on. This is a vacuum hose that goes to the top of the gas tank right here. That is the vent. It doesn't have to be on there, but it's to take the air pressure out of the tank and put the fumes back into the carburetor. And then we're done. We're going to be adjusting the throttle. A lot of people say the go-kart doesn't go fast enough, or it doesn't go very good, or whatever. If you want to adjust that, you have this bolt right here on the back of the gas pedal. Do not remove this bolt. You don't want to remove the bolt, because if you do, this pedal is going to go down too far, and you're going to put pressure on the cable, and you're going to break the cable, and it's not going to work at all. What you want to do is just remove this rubber plug off the end of it, and that'll make the pedal go down a little further and give you more throttle. We're going to show people how to use the choke. When you start the engine, I get a lot of people that say they don't know where the choke is, they don't know how to use it. This is a mini XRX Trailmaster go-kart. What you want to do is turn the key on. This is the choke. You pull the choke out. So this rod is out. Sometimes you might have to hold it out, and then you hit the start button and start it. And that's how you start it. Once it runs for a minute or so, then push the choke back in.